Hello, 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 and welcome to T is for Time in Get Your Shit Together. You know, said no one ever, would you like to meet at the bar and have a conversation about time management? I mean, let's be honest, nobody ever brings that up. And yet, I will say, in what would you say, 99%? I think, in my opinion, 99% of our conversation managing our time and optimizing our time and getting full value for our time in the amount of time that we're here is one of the most critical subjects that comes up on a daily basis. In fact, I would argue that time management and money management are the two things that I talk about with everyone that I work with more than anything else. Because that the belief is if you have more time, that is because you've made a certain amount of money. And if you have more money, obviously you can buy time and choose to spend your time differently. You know, the two are inversely and conversely and all the things connected. And so it's something that comes up all the time. It's easier said than done on how we manage our time. And we all know there are a million cliches about time. I wrote an ebook about time, so I'm going to give you the link in the files after. And it's just because there's just the conversation is constant, right? And we've heard it all the time. You know, time flies, the days are long, but the years are short. All these different expressions. And I actually went and Googled all the different idioms and cliches that all of us say about time. And the truth is, time is something that once spent, we can never get back. It is something that is very precious to us. It's something we need to treasure, and it's something we need to really allocate as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Hence the reason that I have done and this entire session on it, because I truly do think that how we allocate our time really helps us evaluate what our priorities are in life. And so as I say that, I recognize, as I'm sure you recognize, there's a million things that are constantly pulling on your time, right? There's never enough time. There's always lots of things to do. And that's personally and professionally, whether it's chores and your to-do list or just work and requirements and deadlines and paperwork and administration. As my children started to become adults, they were like, oh my God, the amount of time that is required just to manage paying bills and managing the administration of your life is actually way more intense than they even realized. So when you add all of that up, it's incredible, all the things that are tugging at us. And I get it. So I'm not going to share this with you for the purpose of bragging. There are no bragging rights here because I don't think burnout is a bragging right. I don't think never having enough time is a bragging right. But I want to share with you that I too get this because, in my opinion, there is never enough time. And I am a prof, I'm a business coach, I speak at different conferences. I have 3 young adult kids in 3 different countries and 3 different time zones. I have 3 rental properties. I have an Airbnb as my 4th property that I take care of. I've written a couple of books. So for me as well, there are just simply not enough hours in the day. I also have this beautiful furry friend that needs to go out for a walk several times a day. So how do you really figure out, where your time is and how to best manage it? So what I will share with you over the course of our time together is what I'm not going to do is recommend another app or another piece of software or that you go out and buy any tools. By no means, personally, I God bless project managers. And if you're a project manager, please forgive me. But those Gantt charts and timeline things make me crazy because I feel like actually they require even more of our time to manage versus, the actual work that they do. No disrespect to them. And I get the reason they exist and I get the importance over multiple, when you have multiple people involved. But I also kind of go, oh dear God, those can take up more time than sometimes the value they provide. So I say this with a degree of apology because I know in some cases they are actually highly required. So what this really is an optimization of your current tools and systems and hopefully a fresh perspective on those. So one thing I'd like you to do as you start to get into this, and this will all be uploaded, so you'll have access to this worksheet, is do a little bit of a time audit on yourself and take a look at, where are you spending your time? And where would you like to spend your time? So if you've been along this journey with me and you've actually taken the time to do your vision, mission, and values, you know how you'd like to spend your time. But the truth is, there are a lot of things that are probably gobbling up your time. So it'd be great if you could just do a little bit of that audit as to where you are today. And then I'm going to recommend, how we look at this and learn from this, and then potentially make some changes for the future. So take a look at, what you're doing, kind of describe it, because obviously what you're doing, like, we have to do laundry, we have to do grocery shopping, but we also have work that we have to do. Ideally, we'd like to work out. So there are things that we have to do for purpose of sustenance and keeping our life together. And then there are things that we would like to add into that for the purpose, again, of our sustenance, keeping our mental health and well-being together and living well. And so what is the percentage of your time that you allocate to that now? And what would you like to allocate to it? The truth is, I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe that if you are living a happy, full life, then you will find balance and there will be an ebb and flow. And I think that that just comes from having clarity as to what's important to you, figuring that out in your day. And then, in my opinion, clarity breeds focus, and focus breeds mastery and momentum, and specifically momentum. And, I've kind of altered. I used to say clarity breeds focus and focus breeds mastery, which means you get really good at something. And I believe that's true. But in the spirit of how you apply that to your goals, I do think clarity breeds focus, and then focus breeds momentum. Because once you're very clear, then you know what you want to say yes to and what you want to say no to. And so to that point, I found that I was on the verge of burnout, whatever burnout is. I felt like I was working, way too many hours in a day and constantly running and constantly chasing and not in my prime zone. And so I did this test on myself. So this is a really ugly page, but I want to kind of see if I can make it a bit bigger and show it to you. So this is a vibe check. That's what I called it. And what it does is along this side here, you can see it's got all the hours of the day in half-hour increments. And then across here, it has all the days of the week, and it starts off on a Monday. And what it does is it asks you to put in your tasks and tools. And then I even put in things like when you are eating, so when you're having a meal, any supplements that you're taking. And then what I ask you to do is rate your energy level on a score of 1 to 10. And so you only have to do this for 1 week, or I would recommend you do it for 1 week. And the purpose of this is to see when you are high energy, low energy, and what work are you doing during those high and low energy periods? Because what I found is that sometimes I was using my high energy periods for work that actually didn't need a lot of high energy. It was actually low energy. It was answering emails, doing, paying bills, handling some of the administration of life. And so what I found is it actually got me to readjust my days so that I was doing that admin stuff when it didn't actually require, big brain focus. So I could do that at 3 or 4 in the afternoon over a cup of coffee. And I wasn't doing it when I was really needing my thinking and brain time. That time so for me, that's early in the morning. And so I was using that for the work that I love to do most, which is creating content and writing and developing tools and doing frameworks and coaching. And so I found that I really started to schedule my work around when my energy was optimized. And as a result of that, my work became more efficient and more effective. But more importantly, I was happier. Because what I have found is sometimes, and I think was the catalyst for this chart, was that I was doing work and getting work off my plate and clearing out my inbox first thing in the morning. And this is actually my most productive time. But and I resented it. And that is actually when I'd really like to write and when I'd like to coach and do other things. And so I was using my most productive time for my least valuable and least fulfilling work. So take that away. Like that's what actually makes us sometimes grumpy in our day. And so I flipped this on its head and I actually changed my calendar so that I was now going to be doing the work that really fuels me and fulfills me and energizes me in that optimal time of day, and then doing work that doesn't fuel me, like my admin work, at 3 or 4 in the afternoon when I'm taking a break, grabbing my coffee, and taking a break from all my meetings and giving myself that chance to refuel and re-energize. And then I found that I got another burst of energy after I did that. So I kind of cleared some clutter, took Sadie for a walk, excuse me, had my coffee, and then came back at it almost as invigorated and as excited as that person who first appeared first thing in the morning. So I would highly recommend that you take a shot at this for yourself, because what I found was that it really helped me better manage, I think, better manage or better match the work that I needed to do and my energy level. And so as a result, I'm happier and I'm healthier as a result of that. What I would also like to suggest is that in the spirit of managing your time, you keep it really simple. I said to you at the beginning, I'm not going to recommend that you go buy tools or do any of those things. I do have I do use two tools. So, and I actually have my other one here right beside me, and this is my analog planner. So it has the months of the year, and specifically for me, which I like, is it has month at a glance, and then inside it has the days of the week. And so I really like this, and maybe it's a bit old school, um, but I do use it as a bit of a to-do list. And then I use my online calendar for specifically marking, whoops, sorry, didn't mean to do that, for specifically marking everything that is time sensitive, everything that has a beginning and end time. So let's talk about that. So whatever you choose to use as your tool for your online calendar, fill that first. So put in all of your work meetings, your work deadlines, the birthdays, the personal appointments, then like literally put in everything that has a finite beginning and end. Any birthdays, celebrations, anything that you have to remember that is in the calendar that is going to happen in the days, weeks, months ahead. And then as you get in the key things that obviously are related to work, that's what keeps us all afloat. Then you put in the personal things like kids' PA days, March break, reading week if you're a university student, or intercession, your doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, whatever it is, put everything in there, your mom's birthday, anything and everything. And then what I do is I then bring it back to the weeks that are in front of me. And then that's where I add in this vibe piece. So there are some things obviously that are givens, like a wedding invitation, etc. But as you go to start schedule your weekly meetings with work and with whatever you do in order to earn a living and manage your life, then what I actually do is I then schedule my workouts, my lunches, my times with family, etc. That any special events that we want to do, I now schedule that in my calendar. And then I sort of take that step back and I have an aerial view of it. And I'm like, is this going to be a good week for me? And what adjustments do I need to make? And I'm always conscious of the work that I've done here as I am planning into the future as well. So I really, today, as an example, I was asked to speak at a conference. And so I looked at that date, obviously, before I responded. And it happens to be virtual. So I'm like, how does that work? How does that work in my day? Can I do it? So before I just jump to yes, obviously I'm making sure that everything works, because my calendar is really highly, it has everything. So it's highly organized, and everything that I do is in that calendar. So I'd strongly suggest that you use really that online calendar as your master life management tool. And then what I do is, if you've got goals that you've set for yourself for the year, obviously, you can see year at a glance, and by the end of the year, you want to achieve this goal. But to achieve that goal, chances are you've got milestones that you need to accomplish throughout the year at different times in the year, so different months of the year. So what I do is I find that really tough to put in my online calendar, because I find it really tough to find places to mark it that I'm actually going to notice it. So that's where I use my analog calendar. And so if we actually go to January, you'll actually see, so off in the notes column, I've got certain goals that I've got to achieve in the month of January. And I really use this as managing those milestones. And then I also use my analog as my to-do list. And that's how I find I use the two tools together to stay on track. I mean, some people are great at using an online calendar as their to-do list. I kind of need to write it down because I'm constantly adding things to it. And so to have to go back to technology sometimes frustrates me. So I kind of like that it's here. But obviously, if there's a meeting or anything, it's got to happen in here. So when I'm actually, I think I've kind of explained this to a certain extent. So I'm not going to go over it again, but I've got notes in here to help support you as you are organizing your calendar. So you can go back to this and be like, okay, this is as I'm doing this. This is how I'm going to use my month at a glance. This is how I'm going to use my week at a glance. And this is how I'm going to use my day at a glance. And so as I say those pieces, this is how I kind of use my day to day for planning. So I started off with Monday morning because I feel like, Monday morning is technically the start of our week. Typically, for many of us, that's when our work starts, and it's also just the kickoff to anything that we're going to put into play. And so that's obviously when it's a good time to review the week ahead and make any adjustments. But I have to say, I feel like Monday is a little bit late to be making those adjustments. I kind of like to make those adjustments and set myself up for the next week. And I will say weeks on a Friday. And so I would say my upcoming weeks begin on a Friday when I'm sort of taking that aerial view back and looking and seeing, does everything fit? Am I going to be able to accomplish the personal as well as professional goals that are important to me? And then Monday is just kind of that check in and the beginning of that to do list piece to ensure that, I haven't forgotten anything. All the to dos and everything are recorded, anything that I have to accomplish, everything from groceries that I have to pick up to appointments to calls that I need to make. And then obviously, this is a little bit of rinse and repeat for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday, I do the review of the week behind me and the setup for the weeks ahead so that I'm setting myself up for success. Saturday, I really try not to work on Saturdays. I do work some Saturdays, but I really try and keep that as my free time and my time to do the errands and chores and catch up that I want to do, dinner with friends, all that sort of thing. And then on Sunday mornings, I like to review my goals. So I use really Sunday mornings as my personal time to review that goal that I've set myself up for 2026, and then, or whatever year it is. And then how am I doing against those milestones? So think about that so that you are taking that time for yourself. If you were required to do this for your job, you would automatically do it, right? You would automatically do the daily, weekly, monthly check in. You'd be comparing to charts and stats and performance and all the things that we have to do for work. And so this is your chance to do that for yourself. So I would highly recommend that you do that. And I like to do it on Sunday mornings. You have to find your pocket of time when you're uninterrupted to actually have that view of your week. And then what I like to do is I like to look at everything kind of at a glance. I like to take that bird's eye view and take a breath and make sure I'm actually setting myself up for success to have a good week. Because obviously, having a good week is going to make me happier and healthier and therefore impact the people that I serve. So I would strongly suggest that you do that for yourself. And the truth is, when you design how you work, you're not just building, a business and doing your work, but you're actually building a lifestyle. And as part of that, that's going to impact how you work, which is going to impact your reputation. It's going to impact all the people that you connect with. So therefore, it's going to commit to, or rather affect your legacy and impact that. And hopefully all in positive ways. So I think this is where, we really think about what is the best way to manage our time. And the best way is to think about what's really important to you. So if we dial back a few days, we talked about vision and we talked about legacy and how those two things really help provide a guiding light for us in how to manage our time, because our vision is all about the goals that we have for our life and where we want to be. Our legacy is how we want to be remembered. And so it's therefore how we impact people every day. So it's all about living in the present and optimizing the present. So those two things can sometimes be in contradiction, which is why it's so important that we ground them in our values and principles and really think about how we want to show up every single day as we achieve both of those things, showing up and being present, and at the same time, working towards the goals that are so important to us so that we have the life that we're proud of and we leave here with no regrets. So I'll plant that seed with you because you might want to go back to those sessions, or conversely, you might want to talk to me one-on-one about that, and happy to dive into that work. So I'll leave that with you and invite you to take some time today to look at your time and plan it out. And I wish you a great day. And I hope this helps you get your shit together. It certainly helped me get my shit together as well. Have a good one.